Hello, thank you so much for coming here today. We are Meridio Aix-Marseille, and this is Deesha Dyer. Thank you so much for listening in. Deesha, you are a former social secretary of the U.S. White House, and you also you're a business owner, you're a CEO, and you also have an association called
BeGirl.world.
BeGirl.world, Thank you. You ended your term under Barack Obama's presidency.
Yes.
I want to talk a little about your association, about your
BeGirl.world.
BeGirl,
You're good. No worries.
About BeGirl.world.
No worries.
This initiative, what was your motivation behind creating this initiative?
Definitely. So thank you for having me here. It's so great to be here. For me, when I worked for President and Mrs. Obama, I would travel all over the world with them. And when I would go to different U.S. embassies around the world, I would notice there were no Black people at the U.S. embassies. And so I started to dig in a little bit further at why that is. And a lot of it stemmed from the study abroad, where a lot of Black students in the U.S. don't study abroad. They don't think they can afford it, or they can't afford it. They don't think it's for them. And so I said, I co-founded it with a friend, why don't we start a program that teaches young Black girls that they can travel? Teaches them about different languages, teaches them about study abroad or getting a job in a different country. And so that is how BeGirl.world started. For us, it's getting them passports, teaching them cultural things, having them learn different dances, but then also taking them to different countries around the world just to allow them to be global citizens. And that's not something a lot of them have exposure to.
And how many young women have been concerned by this initiative today?
Yeah, I'd say we're probably about over 200, 300. Okay. And not all of them have traveled with us. Some young people, we just get passports for them or passports for their parents. It's pretty costly to have a girl in the program full time, traveling and, having events every week. It gets costly. So around, I'd say 200, close to 200, 300 that we have impacted in all.
All right, that's great. Thank you so much. The panel that you spoke on today was about social mobility. I wanted to ask you, have you noticed any women in this that have been under your wing and in this initiative that had undergone significant social mobility following your mentorship?
Yes, a lot. So we're very lucky that we've been doing this since 2014. So some of the young women have now graduated from university, they've gotten to jobs, some of them are parents. And so it's been a while, and we've got to see them, take great jobs. We've got to see them study abroad. We've got to see them, we have somebody who's teaching in Japan. We've got to see them take jobs on cruise ships or wherever else. And for me, that was all the point of it. I think that for us, we never wanted to say it has to be for business. Even if somebody said, I'm just going on holiday to Marseille, that's still travel, So I never looked at it as you have to be in business. I just wanted them to be able to know that they could get out and explore the world. And we've seen that in the girls that we've had.
All right, so this initiative is specifically catered to black women, Black young girls. Was it difficult to implement something that is specifically towards a minority in the U.S.? Has there been any pushback around this initiative? What was it?
There definitely has been. It's definitely difficult. I would say that we haven't gotten a lot of pushback, but in the U.S., sometimes you don't get pushback, you just don't get support. And so we have had where we did not get a grant funded, or we've had where people say, why don't you even do it for Black boys? And it's because I'm a girl, and I know girls best, and we don't have endless amounts of money to do everybody. So I wouldn't say we had pushback, but we definitely had some funding challenges. And in that case, we just scale back the numbers to fit best that we can.
And did you have a broader number of people that you wanted to reach with this initiative and you felt the need to scale back?
Yeah. We, when we have our classes, because, it's a 2-year program, our classes are rather small. They're like 15 girls. And I would have loved to do, 50 girls in the class, but we just didn't have the money, because especially when it came to taking them overseas, which is where the passports come in, of saying, okay, we can't afford for you to be in the program full time, but can we possibly have you just, learn about what a passport is, or how you can travel, or how to look up travel. And so we kind of scale it back that way. We have different tiers.
All right. And do you think that this initiative could be translated to European countries, or is it really such a US-coded initiative that it cannot be exported?
That's a good question. I think that it can be exported to different countries. I think that other countries do a better job probably of teaching students and allowing students to discover the world, take public transportation and all of that. In the U.S., they also make it more accessible financially. In the U.S., there's just a lot of barriers. And so I think that we could definitely find different groups in different countries that can benefit from a program like this for sure. But I would say the U.S. has very special challenges with just exposure and finances. I come over to, France or other countries, and, the students, they've already been to so many countries in Europe. In the U.S., it's like they haven't been to a lot of states, so it's a little bit different. But I think it could be translated in some way.
When you say exposure, you mean exposure to the outside world, like outside of the U.S.?
Yeah, I would say exposure to the outside world. I would say just, being okay with leaving home, for a weekend to go with friends to the next state over. It's a lot of hesitation, a lot of money, a lot of, in the U.S., a lot of Black students have to start working pretty young and going to school. But then the financial barrier to even just travel to Europe from the U.S. as a student is not there for families.
You're speaking a lot about finances, the financial burden. During the panel, student debt was mentioned as a significant obstacle for climbing the social ladder. Do you think you can live with debt in the US? Is it such a significant obstacle for climbing the social ladder, or is it greatly underestimated?
Yeah, I think that you can live with debt. Do you want to? No, we don't want to, but I think you can do it. The issue is that keeps you from doing other things that you want to do. And so that keeps you from maybe going on vacation or buying a house or buying a car or having children. That keeps you a lot of times from having better credit to buy things or just enjoy yourself in life. And so you can definitely live with student loan debt, but it's not pleasurable. And, if you don't pay it off, right away, the interest accrues and all it does is just add to it. So you could start $40,000 in debt, pay it down, and still have like $38,000 in debt after you paid $10,000. And so I feel like it's a terrible cycle, I think, for young people. And I, do not have children, but if my nieces and nephew, I don't want them to start off their life in debt.
Nobody wants to start life in debt.
No, of course not.
Does your fund intervene on trying to solve student debt for these Black girls, or is it not?
Yeah, we don't have the money for that. I wish that we did. I think that, if we could, I would love that, but we can't. So what we do is we do try to help out with books or transportation, something that's a little less expensive, help them get jobs while they're in school, but then also once they study abroad, we try to help them pay for that so they don't have to figure out a way to get money. So we try to take care of the smaller expenses sometimes, but there's always a limit to the amount of money that we have.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
During the panel, you also mentioned community college in order to maybe ease the weight, the burden of higher education. Do you really believe that community college can equal a type of education you can get in maybe, I'm not going to say Ivy League school.
Yeah.
There's a totally separate field, but other regular colleges?
100%, I do. And I think that the reason I believe that is because I went to community college, and so I didn't think that it was equal, but it is equal. I think that there is definitely more rigor, more expectations, and, probably maybe sometimes harder classes, but that doesn't equal a better education. It equals a better opportunity sometimes, but not better education. So I think that if we work community college correctly, not only will it help out with somebody's finances, but it could help them finish, because community college in the U.S. is only 2 years. So you get an associate's degree. And then you can go 2 more years to another school to finish. So to me, that makes the most sense because you're still getting the same degree in the end. And so I do believe that when it comes to education, it is on par. When it comes to opportunity, it is not, because we like to see Ivy League as the standard or other schools as the standard. And that's a problem that society has to fix more than anything else.
Yes, that makes me think about something else you said during the panel on the greatest problems that you faced, which were, first of all, funding, obviously. Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned convincing the girls that they were worth the effort, they were worth pursuing something more. And there's this whole narrative, I feel, in the US around community college and calling it lesser than other types of colleges. And do you think that as a society, we have a responsibility to help students believe in themselves coming from community college or no college at all even?
100%. I think that it's beyond, if there was a word that was stronger than responsibility, I'd use that. It is 100% our responsibility to do that. And I think that many times people my age or older or even a little bit younger, they look at it like, well, this is what I went through, you have to go through it too. I don't believe in that. If I went through something hard, I don't want you to go through something hard. So I want to help you know that, you could do better, or I could help you up in that situation. But I think the confidence that young people are dealing with, which is a lack of confidence and a lack of believing in themselves, is in the US, it is very extreme. We have a lot of high, suicide rates, that are happening with young people. The internet is not helping. Tech is not helping, which I think that some of those could be used for good, but I think it is our responsibility to make sure they know that they are worth it, and that you don't have to humble yourself, and you don't have to be quiet. Like, you can be loud and you could be bold, and that's okay to think you're beautiful. And unfortunately, we don't have that in our young people now.
Unfortunately, yeah. The other speaker, Mr. Restino, mentioned that the first natural resources is the youth. Do you have any reactions to that statement? Do you believe it's true?
I believe it's true. Sometimes I don't know if people say that because it sounds good, or they're really investing in young people. If we think that young people are the natural resource and our most important resource, then we also need to trust them, and we need to listen to them instead of thinking that we know how to do things right all the time. And so I do believe that, but I do think that in that statement comes that we've got to let go, and we also have to listen to young people. If they are the most important thing and they are the crown jewel of what we have, then that means that we can't control them. We can only help guide and listen. And I think that that's the harder part that people have issues with. But I do agree with that statement.
And in the USA, do you believe that the state listens to young people enough, or invests in them enough? Oh, I see your face. Is it a no?
Yeah, I mean, it's a touch and go. I think that when you get, I'm 47, so I think that when you get my age, you start to think much more than everybody else. And so I think that people in the US are being forced to listen to young people. And, because young people are not sitting back and being quiet about their concerns, which I 100% support. Do I think we listen to them or invest in them? I do, but I think that we do it we do it on our own terms, and we do it so it's more control versus letting go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also want to circle back on the whole topic being the social ladder. On confidence and funding, do you believe the biggest obstacle for a young person to climb the social ladder, is it money itself, or is it the confidence of saying, I am capable of doing this, I'm capable of more? Mm-hmm. What's more important in the balance?
That's a great question. That's a hard question to answer. I would say that confidence is more important, because there are people who have a lot of money who aren't confident. And there are people who don't have a lot of money who also aren't confident. So I feel like when you believe in yourself, of course with a lot of extras, like that's a very blanket statement to just say believe in yourself. There's got to be a lot more of that opportunity that come to you, but you can make the money, or you can acquire the money somehow. Not everybody, it's not that easy, but I think that confidence is something that's learned over time. I think money is something that you could get, but you also could lose. But when you believe in yourself and you have confidence, it's always there. So whether I, am here in this lovely conference right now, enjoying myself, and I believe in myself, or I am, figuring out how to pay bills for the week, either which way, I know that I'm capable of doing it. And I think that's the more important thing. So I would say that that's a hard battle, but I would say confidence is probably more important.
Do you hear that? Believe in yourselves, or else.
Or else.
Or else.
I'm going to find you.
we will. Also, circling back on social mobility in general, in France, the speaker that spoke about our situation told you that in France there is a lower opportunity for social mobility in general. It takes 6 generations to see significant change, and there are obviously exceptions. There are always exceptions.
Yeah.
Generally, it's really hard to rise from your social class in France. Is it the case in the US? Because we always call the US a land of opportunity, the American dream. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I would say it depends on who you're talking about. If you're talking about Black Americans, it's never been the case, you know. We were brought over to the country 400 years ago as enslaved people. And so the 6 generations removed from that are still getting low wages, are still not getting education. So I think these statistics, while true, depends on who you're talking about. I think that in the US, that's almost hard to conceptualize because we are made up of immigrants. And so, for the people that have come over to the country, in the 1920s, 30s, whatever, and they made something for themselves, that's one thing, but they also a lot of times weren't Black. They also times had a lot of capital, or they had an opportunity. I think that in our country, racism and the history of the country plays a lot into who succeeds in that, to fit into that statistic, and who doesn't. And so the land of opportunity depends on whose land it is. and we look at, the country, and the country was indigenous land, by Native American people that they don't own their land anymore, so what opportunities do they have that it was all stolen from them? So I think the land of opportunity sounds good, but I think that there's a lot of intricate details in there that make that statement a little not true anymore. Or probably never. It just sounded really good before.
It always does.
It
always does. Talking about opportunity and maybe solving this problem of opportunities, during your time at the White House, did you notice any significant initiatives, significant change by the state to help this global situation?
Yes. There was a lot that we did. I think the bigger thing that I feel like was on the terms of healthcare. So in the U.S., we don't have free healthcare. It's very extremely costly. So a lot of people cross to Canada to get healthcare, or they go to Mexico to get healthcare. And so, during our administration time, President Obama made it so there is healthcare that is available to all at different price points. And that has made it easier for people to access their medicine or hospitals or doctor's visits. Did not eliminate all the problems, right? There's still the cost of it. But I'd say that healthcare was one of the biggest things that we were able to accomplish, and making sure that people weren't, their health was not determined by the amount of money that they had or did not have. And that still remains today. It's called, the ACA is what it's called. People call it Obamacare, but it's called ACA. And it still remains today, the law. I think that our current administration is trying to get rid of it, but it's still there. So, yeah.
And so, if I get this right, the biggest, let's say, crowning achievement of the Obama administration was healthcare.
Yeah.
Do you believe healthcare is a key piece in social mobility?
100%. 100%. I mean, if you're not well, and you have to remember that in the U.S., we have lots of issues with our food. We have lots of issues with not walking and exercise. We have lots of issues with preservatives and all, being in a poor neighborhood, you have lack of better quality food. And so all those things make people sick. And so over time, whether it is when you're older or when you're younger, these are factors that factor into your life. You can't go to work every day if you have a chronic illness. You can't. That's just the way it is. And so you can't take all time off of work. Or you can't hold a job if you're chronically ill. And so I believe that healthcare is huge, because that determines in the end whether you live or you die, and the type of quality of life that you'll have. And it's a shame, because even if you have money, it's still tough. It's still hard to work through the system. And people tell me, here my friends are like, we go to the doctor, and people say the taxes are high in other places. That's why. But I would rather my taxes go towards healthcare and fixing healthcare and hospitalization than anything else, than billionaires or other things. And so I'm okay with it, But I think it definitely has something to do with social mobility, 100%.
Yeah, in order to compare the US and France, I don't know if you're really aware of how healthcare goes in France in general.
I
with
don't
the
think I
social
do.
security.
Yeah.
The state is generally a much higher provider of funds. It really reimburses more healthcare. Healthcare is practically free in France.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask, do you have any advice? Like, what does the US do right in terms of social mobility, in terms of healthcare? That could be maybe a little advice for us European countries.
I'm gonna be honest with you.
Right?
I don't like you asked at a really rough time. This question, I do not know. I wish I could answer that for you. What I would say, something that we do right, I would say, is research and science. And I would say even what the news media says now about some of our people don't believing in science and don't believe in those things, the more the country does, you just don't see it because it's not the headline. But I would say science and medicine and people coming there to study and to do research, whether it's for cancer, whether it's for diabetes or whatever it is, I do believe that we're doing that right. Again, we have a government that, who knows what's going to happen in the future. But I will say that, I've always loved, at least when foreign students come and study in the U.S. And we live right near one of the top hospitals, research hospitals in the world. And it's all students from other countries that come there and study. And that says something. So I think that we've got that right. But I can't name another one.
That's there already.
Yeah.
Circling back to young people and social mobility, do you believe that young people benefit less or more from the social ladder than previous generations?
Yeah, I would say less. And I would say a lot of that is because there are previous generations that back home we call it gatekeeping. I don't know what you all call it here, where it is we have this information and you need to earn your way to this. And I don't believe in that. And so I feel like sometimes people are holding on, the previous generations are holding on to things that we need to release or share, and that doesn't really happen. But I will say, at least in the US, a lot of our youth don't care about a social ladder anymore. They don't care about social mobility anymore.
Do you think they don't care or they don't hope for it? Maybe?
I think that they saw what it did to their parents. I think they saw what it did to, as nice as it looked on the outside, I think a lot of them have seen some of the repercussions of climbing a social ladder and decided that it wasn't for them and that they'd rather be happy and healthy and work. And because there isn't again, it's different here in France, but at home, like, you don't need to climb the social ladder to be successful. You climb the social ladder to get invited to parties and to get promotions at work. But if you're happy doing what you're doing, you don't need to be at the top of the social ladder. And I think that a lot of young people are seeing that and they're opting out because it's a lot of work, and then by the time you do that and you're working all day and you're going to all these things, it's like, what kind of life do I have in the end? And the US doesn't have a good work-life balance. And so I think that a lot of them are stopping to care, especially as our politics go on.
So do you believe the whole you need to pursue greater things, you need to move up, is it a toxic narrative?
Yes, I do believe it's a toxic narrative, but what I will say is it's a toxic narrative in how we talk about it now. I think overall, pursue greater things, 100%. But that could be if you want to pursue going to the circus. Like, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I think that we look at it like pursue greater things. Like, you have to become the head of this, or you have to do this. But like, what if somebody, like for me, I used to be a dancer, and so I grew up dancing. So for me, being able to dance on stage again is a big deal to me. That's great to me. Is it something that's going to get me money? Absolutely not. But like, for me, that's important. So I think that pursuing greater things is important, but they have to be things that are greater for you and your soul and what you believe If it's money, if it's a position at work, that's okay too. But I think that we have to stop saying greater things are what the whole society thinks versus what we want and what we feel. And the people that can come to a medium in that probably have the most success, I would say.
That's really great words. Also, on this whole pursuing greater things, people who try and want to pursue greater things, other things in life, also really struggle most of the time with imposter syndrome. I know I do, and you mentioned it in your book. You also struggled with imposter syndrome. Do you have any words for the youth, young people that are listening to us right now, to help maybe this imposter syndrome to feel as if they're legitimate, to accomplish what they want?
100%. And what I say is you have to think about why you feel that way. Like, it's not something that you can easily get rid of and just say, I did my affirmations today, or I read a great book, or I journaled, and it's gone. You have to think about, why do you feel that way? Because what has happened in your life, a situation that made you feel like you couldn't do whatever you wanted to do? And that is the question that has to be answered, because until that question is answered, that imposter syndrome is going to stay, And I'm basically over my imposter syndrome. But it doesn't mean that I don't feel nervous about things, like being on the stage here today and not knowing French and being like, nobody will get my jokes and nobody will like what I'm saying. I'm nervous. It's okay to be nervous. It's okay to have a little bit of fear, especially if you've never done something before. So separate that from, I just never did this, I'm a little scared, from, I don't think I can do it. That's the two different things. And so I think that what I always do, what I encourage people to do, is write down all the wonderful things that you've done in your life. Like, from going to school to doing this, interview to being here. And when you look at that list, you kind of look at it and be like, wait a minute, like, I'm pretty dope. Like, look at all these things that I've done. Like, look at me. Like, and you have to be comfortable feeling that feeling, because it's easy for us to feel as if we are not qualified for something while we're doing something. And it's just like, wait a minute, like, look at all these great things I've done. I did, and that means that I can do another set of great things. So for me, I have to get in that mindset of bigging myself up and loving myself and saying like, like, you did all these things, you're great. And you're going to fail at some things. Failure is a part of life. But failure is not the indicator of the value and the worth that you have. So failing is just something didn't work out. It just didn't work out.
The key is confidence.
The key is confidence, but the key is figuring out where you lost it, right? Because we're not born that way. We are not born. Some people do have home situations or things that do make them feel inferior, but we don't come out, at the hospital and somebody says, all right, we're going to slap this one with imposter syndrome. So eventually along the way, especially I think for minorities, for women, for young people, like along the way, you hear enough negative things, you start to absorb them. And as you grow, that grows too. So you just have to kind of figure out where it came from, dig up that root and plant a new tree and be like, I'm moving forward. And sometimes that separates you from your friends, because your friends are all like, oh, she thinks she's, back home we say like, conceited, or they think they're so pretty, and you're like, actually I do. You think you're so smart. I'm actually in France at this conference. I actually do think I'm smart. You know what I mean? And that's okay to say. It's okay to say.
Takeaway here is confidence is key, but there may be also other factors to solve this, first of all, imposter syndrome, and globally help social mobility. I wanted to mention intergenerational solidarity. You mentioned older people, older generations gatekeeping information. What impact can intergenerational solidarity have to enable young people to evolve?
I mean, everything. I mean, if I can pass along any information, experiences, contacts, that can help a young person, I'm all for it. Like, I don't believe that I've accomplished all in my life to say I'm just going to hold on to this, but being able to pass that on, and then also being able to be a resource for when somebody, wants to go work at the White House. They'll say, Deesha, what was it like for you? Like, can you help me go through this? Not a problem for me. But I think it also works the other way, where I can learn from young people about technology, or I can learn about even just social media. Like, I'm just bad at it. And like, my nieces will be like, I'll help you. They're 21. They're like, I'll help you. And so we can learn about the way that the world is moving from young people too. So I feel like with that partnership, it just creates a better dynamic for all of us versus being us against them, or I know more than you. Like, of course I know more than you. I've been alive double than you've been alive. So yes, I know a little bit more, but you know things too. And so I think that the intergenerational, that's the only way that we're going to succeed, and especially in a world that tries to divide us by those things. I don't believe that, you know.
Yeah, you need to blend all generations.
You have to. And it won't be on everything, and it doesn't have to be all the time, but we do have to do a better job at that, you know, self included. It has to do a better job at that.
Yeah, what you just said really bridges perfectly with something Mr. Vestino mentioned during the panel earlier, is that he mentioned that we need the social ladder all our lives. Mm-hmm. And the question is, should the state accompany and lift people up all their life? Or is there an age where people are 100% responsible for their own success?
I think that there's both. I think that the state, and I know back at home, the government has a big hand in how things are done, and they have the power that a person's just not going to have. And so they need to use that power to help people. And that's what the government is there for. That's what we pay our taxes for. But I don't think there is a point that we need to rely on them for success or rely on them for those things. But, you know, unfortunately, you know, back home anyway, we've made it so there is a dependency always on government. But in order to fix that dependency, we have to fix education, we have to fix housing, we have to fix economics. So there's so many things that have to be fixed in the government's hands that then will get people not to always need it, right? And so you can either say, we're always going to be there for you and we're going to do that, or we're going to fix that, which it's easier just to be there. But I do believe that there is a point you know, that you are responsible for your own success, but the definition of what that success is up to the person. I don't think it's up to the world. I think it's up to the person.
And where would that point be? Is there a specific age, or is it specific to the person?
I think it's specific to the person. I mean, you know, we have back home where, you know, you're an adult at 18, you know, but I know that I wasn't ready to be an adult at 18. You know, I thought I was, but I wasn't ready to pay bills, and I wasn't ready to be on my own. But that's what the state says. At 18, you are now responsible for yourself, but I wasn't ready for that. And so there is the age thing that we have back home, but I don't think that there is a point in which, you know, I think it's individual where you are ready for that. But I do feel like those factors need to come into play before you start a family and start other things, because then the cycle starts all over again. And so I do believe that, you know, for me, it was always very important to say, before I start a family, like, let me make sure that I've gotten these things done. But then that list can go on forever, you know? So, yeah.
That was really great. Well, thank you so much. I wanted to know if you had any words for today's youth, specifically the French youth.
Yes.
In general.
It's French youth. I think, you know, the words I would say is that you are beyond valuable. You are beyond valuable. You are beyond worthy. And nothing that you do, from your schooling to being involved in social causes, can change that. You know, you can go to school and get a doctorate at the top level, and you're still worthy. You could not go to school, and you're still worthy. So I would say to be careful what you place your value in, because if that thing does not work out, then you're going to go down with it, you know? So just look at things and say, you know what, like, I'm interested in this, I'm going to go for this. If it doesn't work out, it just didn't work out. And I think that you have to be okay with failure, and you have to be okay with things not working out, but none of that takes away from who you are. You do not have to earn your worth. You do not have to earn your value. You don't have to earn it. It was given to you at birth. That's that. So there is nothing you have to earn besides the opportunities in which you want from here. And stay together, stay in a group, stay in community, because all we have is each other. So we need each other. So we have to make sure that we stay and be honest with your friends about your physical health and your mental health. It's so very important. And just know that, you know, you're always loved. That's what I would say.
Thank you. That is a really sweet message, and I feel really inspired right now. Thank you so much for being here today. And merci à vous, chers auditeurs, de nous avoir écoutés, de nous avoir suivis. Merci, et n'hésitez pas à vous abonner pour plus de contenu Meridio. Merci.